Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Galaxy Report. The Galaxy Report is here to bring you breaking intergalactic stories, as featured first on thedailygalaxy.com. This week's story, as well as many more, can be found at www.dailygalaxy.com. I'm Nicole Butcher, and I'm thrilled to be narrating these stories for you. This week, we're going to be talking about the Extraterrestrial-Contact Paradox. According to British physicist Stephen Wolfram, extraterrestrial intelligent life is inevitable, but not without a caveat. This caveat being that we'll never find it, at least not by searching in the Milky Way. And even if we do find it, we will never be able to decipher it. In regards to information, Wolfram points out that in order to compress more and more information into our communication signals, be they mobile phone conversations or computers, we remove all redundancy or patterns. If anything in a signal repeats, then it can be deleted. This process of removing any pattern from a signal makes the signal look more and more random. In fact, pretty much like the random radio noise that rains down on Earth, coming from the stars and interstellar gas clouds. According to Wolfram, if someone beamed our own 21st century communication signals at us from space, we would be hard-pressed to determine whether or not they were artificial or natural. So what chance do we have of distinguishing an ET communication from the general background radio static of the cosmos? In his magnum opus, A New Kind of Science, Wolfram suggests that extraterrestrial intelligence is difficult to define and recognize. It has usually been assumed that detecting extraterrestrial signals from a sophisticated mathematical computation would provide evidence for extraterrestrial intelligence, he writes. But the discoveries, written about in A New Kind of Science, show that such computation can actually be produced by very simple underlying rules, of kinds that can occur in simple physical systems with nothing like what we normally consider intelligence. The result is a new view of the character of intelligence, and a collection of ideas about the nature of purpose, and recognizing it in ultimate exopolitans of technology. As Harvard's Avi Loeb suggests about the first known interstellar object detected passing through our solar system, known as Oumuamua, which is Hawaiian for messenger from afar, ET artifacts could look far more like a natural artifact. Loeb made headlines around the globe in 2018 when he suggested that Oumuamua, with an extreme oblong shape as much as 10 times as long as it is wide, might actually be an alien spacecraft. An analysis of its trajectory suggests that the object came from a place far beyond the solar system, somewhere in the constellation Lyra, headed towards the constellation Pegasus. Astronomers around the world attempted to detect radio signals to see if they could determine what it was. Was it a shard from an ancient asteroid, a weird comet, or was it something else? A possibility, Loeb suggests, that is no more speculative than the existence of dark matter or dark energy. It's easy to distinguish a technological artifact such as a car from a natural object, such as a tree. The tree is far more complicated, but, says Wolfram, this is simply because our technological artifacts are primitive. As they become more complex, with computer processes enabling them to make moment-by-moment decisions, they will begin to look just as complex as trees, and people, and stars. We have a slim chance, he suggests, of distinguishing an ET artifact from a natural celestial object. If Wolfram's right and ETs are out there, but we're not able to recognize them, either in their communication or their artifacts, then of course they could be here in our solar system, and we wouldn't have even noticed. Wolfram thinks ETs will not want to travel to Earth, or anywhere else for that matter. In Wolfram's view, everything in the universe is the product of a computer program, In fact, he imagines an abstract cyber universe of all conceivable computer programs, all the way from the simplest up to the most complex. This computational universe contains everything from the Apple Macintosh operating system to a program creating a faster-than-light starship. Wolfram believes he has found nature's big secret, how it generates the complexity of the world, everything from a dodecahedron to a tree to a barred spiral galaxy, by applying simple rules over and over again as simple computer programs. Wolfram came to this remarkable conclusion in the early 1980s when he discovered the simplest kind of computer program, known as cellular automation, can generate infinite complexity if its output is repeatedly fed back as its input. This is evidence that the kind of computer program that produces endless complexity can be implemented, not just in systems of biological molecules, but in all sorts of physical systems, chaotic gas clouds, systems of subatomic particles, and so on. He concludes that all over the universe, life, though definitely not as life as we know it, will spring up spontaneously. It is a fundamental feature of matter. The existence of this computational universe is the crucial part, but the reality is, it would be easier and more efficient for an ET civilization to stay at home and use a computer to search the computational universe, as opposed to trying to get the same information by hunting for ETs among the same 200 billion or so stars in the Milky Way. It's a simple numbers game, says Wolfram. Everything is generated by computer program, and that includes you and me, Wolfram says. Someone halfway across the galaxy could have found the computational program for you, and is conversing with you at this very moment. It would be easier to use artificial intelligence than our own internal intelligence to run these programs. While the human eye and brain are hard to beat, explains Stephen Tingy, professor at Curtin University and deputy director of the International Center for Radio Astronomy, we can't deal with very much data and struggle to maintain consistency. AI could possibly filter down massive datasets into much lower volume categories of signals that humans can deal with to identify new phenomena. AI techniques are well suited to anomaly detection and the classification of complex signals. AI offers a potentially effective method for the interrogation of massive datasets that contain a range of signals from natural to human-made and possibly extraterrestrial sources. In an email to the Daily Galaxy, Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb wrote, "The recently announced Galileo project will use telescopes to discover extraterrestrial equipment near Earth. If this fishing expedition will discover AI systems, our civilizations will surely learn something new in ways that cannot be forecasted in advance. If we discover AI equipment from another civilization in our sky, we should first examine it remotely and passively. It's very possible, and perhaps likely, that when we encounter another technological species, its cognition will be so completely different from ours that we will have little to no hope of communicating," wrote Penn State astrophysics and director of the Extraterrestrial Intelligence Center, Jason Wright, in an email to the Daily Galaxy. Consider that we share significant evolutionary descent with fellow communicative mammals like dolphins, but despite decades of study, do not meaningfully communicate with them, like we hope to with extraterrestrials. How much more difficult will it be with creatures from a completely different evolutionary path? On the other hand, Wright notes, if they are doing something we can recognize as technology, like transmitting radio signals, that implies a certain degree of convergent evolution with humanity, and perhaps we will find something in the languages of mathematics, engineering, and physics to begin a real dialogue. This story was published first on the Daily Galaxy by Avi Shapur, who is a research scientist with the MIT Cavalli Institute for Astrophysics and Space Research. It is with the help of researchers like Avi Loeb, Jason Wright, Stephen Tingray, M. Chon, The Universe Next Door, and Stephen Wolfram. A special thanks to the Gemini Observatory for some photographs as well. I'm Nicole Butcher. It's been a pleasure to be with you guys on this journey this week. In my personal time, like most space lovers, I spend a lot of time thinking about how extraterrestrials would get in contact with us. One of my favorite ones to imagine is telepathy, or like an inner knowing that transcends language. But this story really opened up a lot of different paths for me to explore, and I'd love to hear your guys' feedback or what it brought up for you. Make sure to subscribe. We got new stories coming every week, as well as galactic stories daily on thedailygalaxy.com.